Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Greater Atlanta Area Virtual College Fair. Tonight, we are going to be hearing from the University of Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us for this information session. Just a few announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type questions to our presenters at any time during the presentation, and I really encourage you to use that. Your camera and microphone are turned off so the panelists can't see or hear you. So the Q&A tool, which you can see that button right on your screen, that's the only way you'll have to interact with the panelists, and I know that they are eager to answer your questions. So don't be shy, ask away. This is one of many different sessions that are happening as part of this College Fair series, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. And lastly, this presentation is being recorded, as are all the other sessions. So if you miss some other presentation this evening, you can check back in about a week on the same website where you registered, where you will find the recordings of all of these sessions. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our panelists. And now I will turn it over to all of them.
Thank you, Josh. Good evening. Thank you again for joining us. And I want to welcome you to the Greater Atlanta Area Colleges Spotlight featuring the University of Georgia this evening. Again, as Josh kind of gave you some housekeeping, I will just re-emphasize, but we are excited. We're going to allow for participants to get logged on. And once we see that things have leveled off, we will get started. The layout of the UGA session, information session, will be a 25-minute presentation from my colleague, Michael Stone. And so as he's getting set up, he will give you a 25 information session, and then we will close out with a 15-minute Q&A. We do want you to type us questions, send us questions. So as you can see, we cannot see you, we cannot hear you, you are muted. But we do want you to send us questions. So please do that. We do have some folks from our admissions office who are behind the scenes. So we have 2 people that will answer questions, and we will do a few questions live during the 15-minute Q&A. Again, my name is Anthony Johnson. I'm an admissions regional officer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm speaking to you from my home in Sandy Springs. So again, we want to welcome you to the Greater Atlanta Colleges Spotlight featuring the University of Georgia. I'll just kind of emphasize again, the layout of the UGA information session will be a 25-minute presentation given by Mr. Michael Stone, and then followed by a 15-minute Q&A. Okay. So again, you are muted. We cannot see you. However, we do want you to leave us some questions. Feel free to ask us questions throughout the presentation. As you can see, if you're on a mobile device or a tablet, just tap on Q&A, and that's a great way that you can communicate with us. So it looks like things have begun to level off. So I am going to sign off for a little bit and get ready to turn it over to Michael Stone. I will be back for our Q&A.
All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Stone, and I'm an admissions officer with the University of Georgia. I'm based out of Athens, and I work primarily with students that are from the Northeast Georgia area and then the state of Tennessee. But I give these presentations for everybody, and this is one of my favorite parts of this job, is walking people through our process. So I'm happy to do it today. Obviously, I wish we could do this in person. But this will be a 25-minute presentation on what the university has to offer and kind of what our admissions process looks like. And I'm hoping to answer some questions with this presentation, hopefully knock out some myths and ease some nerves. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. The University of Georgia was established in 1785. That makes us the birthplace of public higher education. So we're actually the very first publicly chartered school in the country, which is a really fun fact. If you guys have ever been to the University of Georgia, you'll see 1785 written all over the place, and that's why. So on campus, we have about 39,000 students as of last year. Around 30,000 of those students are undergraduate students, and 9,000 make up graduate students, so the rest of the student body there. We are a large program or a large school, and with that comes a lot of opportunities, and you'll see that with our majors and academic programs here. We have over 200 different majors and academic programs to choose from. Now, if anybody out there watching is like me, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I started college or when I applied to college. And I want to ease everybody's minds here and let you know that we do not use major or your academic choice as far as what you want to study in our admissions process at all. So if you're undecided, if you think you might change your mind, then that is completely fine. It's really common that the average college student changes their major 3 times. I'm an overachiever, I changed mine 4. But we have a really cool tool to kind of help you navigate these 200 plus programs. It's that website you see there, majors.admissions.uga.edu. And this website is updated all the time. You can type in keywords, whether it's pop culture references, majors that you're interested in, a job that you're looking at as a goal. And it'll pull up a list of majors that relates to that keyword, which is a really neat way to narrow down this majors and academic program to something that you're more interested in without that pressure of having to choose something for the application. So those 200 majors and academic programs are housed in 17 different schools and colleges around campus. And I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't mention the city of Athens on this slide. So what you're seeing in this picture is North Campus, and then you're kind of looking into downtown there. We call Athens the classic city for a variety of reasons. And one of those is the music scene. We have a lot of really awesome bands and artists that come out of Athens, including REM, John Mayer's come through Athens, and there's a lot more, and it's something that's really popular. We also have a really cool art scene and an amazing food scene also. So Athens is a really cool end-all be-all college town, and that's one of my favorite things about being at UGA is the city of Athens. I think I could probably sit here and talk about Athens for the full 25 minutes that I have, but I'm not going to do that. A visit to Athens would kind of give you and show you the feeling that you would get as a student here at UGA. On campus, we have over 700 different student clubs and organizations that get involved in. Before I move on from this, I want to encourage all of our students watching, if you have not applied, or if you've applied to multiple schools, which is great, we encourage that. No matter where you end up going, get involved in a club or an organization. I'm speaking from experience. It makes your experience at college a lot better. Don't get caught in the bubble of going from your dorm room to class and then back and forth. Put yourself out there, meet some new people, and that's kind of part of that college experience. And we have a lot of different ways to do that. Everything from intramural sports to Greek life to religious organizations and interest groups. I've tried to find a club or an organization that didn't already exist for something that I was interested in, and I have yet to find something. So what I'm getting at here is get involved. That's one of my #1 pieces of advice, aside from focusing on your academics. The University of Georgia is a large campus, but we do have a free transit service in Athens that runs all the time for students. If you've ever been to Athens, you've seen that we have buses for students that run all the time. And if you are curious about how these buses run, we actually have a University of Georgia app that you can download as a student, and it'll show you these live bus routes all around campus. So you can actually choose a route, and it'll take you, depending on where your classes are or where you're set up, all around campus. And then we actually have buses that go on and off campus for students. So it's a cool way to kind of keep up with where you're going. We have a really popular question on this slide, and it's, can first-year students bring cars to campus? And the answer is yes, you can. We have 5 dining halls on campus. These are award-winning dining halls. I can speak from personal experience. The food that comes out of our dining halls is awesome. I eat there all the time. And we have 22 different residence halls on campus. That's a lot of residence halls. Everything from traditional style, where you have 2 people in a room, all the way up to suites, and then all the way up until to apartment style living on campus. So if you want a tour of any of these campus buildings virtually, they're available on the housing website. You can see pictures and kind of the layout of what these would look like. I would encourage everybody to go check those out. But the options for students as part of the student life on campus are really endless. And if you pair that with Athens, UGA is a really awesome place to be. So academically, if you are accepted to the University of Georgia, you're going to have the option and the availability to lots of different academic programs. And we pulled out 3 points of pride that we want to talk about. And the first one is our honors program. So our honors program is a top 10 ranked program in the country for public schools. And one change this year from last year for the honors program, if anybody's interested in applying for it, is that if you apply for early action, you will automatically be considered for that honors program when you apply for early action. In years past, there's a separate application, and then you would find out later. Now, if you apply early action, you're automatically considered. If you choose to do regular decision, it is a separate application that will open on December 1st. If you're interested in honors, there's a lot of benefits that come along with it. We have priority registration can be a benefit, smaller and different style learning classrooms. You can live with other honors students in kind of a cohort. Additional scholarship and experiential learning opportunities. The Foundation Fellowship Scholarship is through the honors program, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But the benefits of this honors program are awesome. And a full list can be found at honors.uga.edu. Second thing I want to talk about is experiential learning. And experiential learning is something that you may have heard of if you've done college tours. It's kind of a buzzword, but it is required for undergraduate students at UGA. We have thousands of ways to get this done, whether that's study abroad, internships, work-based learning, community work or impact, you name it, we probably have it. We can go to over 100 different countries, all 7 continents, obviously when it's safe to travel again. And we have students that are either in Athens, Atlanta with large corporations all around the country. And whether it's large corporations or professional sports teams, it really just depends on what you're involved in or what your major is. But a full list of experiential learning opportunities can be found at el.uga.edu. And I did a lot of traveling internationally when I was in my undergrad. I can tell you guys from experience, I wouldn't take it back for anything. So to be able to travel and get college credit for traveling and going and experiencing other cultures is something that is a really neat opportunity. And I did say all 7 continents. I always love to throw this out there. We do have students that study in Antarctica, studying penguins during the summer, which is really neat. I always love to hear that. Double Dogs is the next point of pride that I want to point out. And Double Dogs is an accelerated master's degree program where you get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree done at the same time. It takes 5 years or less, and we have over 200 different combinations for Double Dogs. And they don't have to be in the same subject. So you can do engineering and business if you wanted to, or you name it, it's probably available. We have a full list at doubledogs.uga.edu. One of the advantages of this program is that you're going to knock out a full year of tuition and knock out a full year of studying, and you get both degrees when you walk in 5 years or less. And then on top of that, you're also still going to have the opportunity to take advantage of everything else that we've already talked about. If anybody else is like me, I got my bachelor's degree done, and then I went to work for a couple years, and then went back for my master's degree. And I can tell you from experience that it takes a lot longer to do it that way, and it can be a little bit more expensive to do it that way. So staying in that mindset and taking advantage of a program like Double Dogs is a really neat opportunity. I would encourage everybody to go check that out. So we pulled out 3 numbers that really speak to what the University of Georgia is doing. And these are 3 numbers that we are really, really proud of. That first one is our 96% first-year retention rate. That's above the national average. And what that means is that of all first-year students that start with us, 96% return after the first year. And that's something that we're really proud of. So we are a large school with almost 40,000 students, but we do our best to make it feel small and give you that personal experience. So what that means is, for example, 85% of our classes are 50 students or less. So it's a common myth that you're going to have these large auditorium classes with 200 to 300 students in them. And you may have 1 or 2 in your first year, first semester with those core courses. But for the most part, your classes are going to be 50 students or less. And then when you get into that program of study, classes are actually capped at 25 or 35 students per class. I can't remember exactly what it is. But those are capped, so you're going to have that small classroom experience in a lot of your classes. And then with that, we actually have an 18-to-1 faculty-student ratio. So a lot of students, but we also have a lot of faculty available that are there to help students. And they really enjoy what they do. So they have office hours, and students can get that personal experience with them. And all these things lead to success, and we see that in our graduation rate. So 87% in 6 years. Typically, when I do this presentation in front of a large group, they say, well, I'm not going to be in school for 6 years, so I don't see how that number applies to me. We understand that since we're a publicly chartered school, we have to say the 6-year graduation rate. But our 4-year graduation rate is around 68% and jumps up a really significant margin after 4.5 years. Whether students are still studying abroad, taking advantage of double dogs, still working on internships, you name it, working on a minor. We have a lot of students that stick around for that extra semester or half a year, and then that graduation rate creeps up a good bit. And then we want to continue to see that success after students graduate, and we are, with our graduates being employed or in 6 months, or employed or in graduate school in 6 months. And we see 95% of our graduates doing that. A breakdown of where those students are going can actually be found on our admissions website. If you go to admissions and then find resources, we have our publications that kind of have all these numbers published with a lot of different information that you can go look at, and I would definitely encourage you guys to check that out. But what I'm getting at is that we see success coming in, returning, we see students graduating, and then we're seeing that success continue, which is exactly what we're looking for, and that's one of the main reasons that students go to college in the first place. So how do we get those students here? That is through our application for admission, and we have 2 different times to apply. So we have early action and we have regular decision. I'll get into those deadlines a little bit more in depth in just a minute. But I will say that both of these times are evaluated in the exact same way. So there is no advantage competitiveness-wise from early action to regular decision. That said, we do have 3 different kinds or types of application styles, I guess. We have the Common App, we have Coalition, and we have UGA. All 3 of these are going to ask you the same thing. We look at all 3 the same, we evaluate them the same. What one you pick is up to you. There is no advantage to one over the other. The only thing we ask is that if you start one and if you choose it, to stick with it. There are 2 short answer essays, and you can actually find these essays on our blog, our admissions blog, published word for word. If you haven't started the application yet, to kind of get a head start, there are 350 to 400 words, and I get a lot of questions asking what is it that I should be saying in an essay that would make me stand out, or what is the secret formula to a UGA essay? And there really isn't an answer to that. So we're not looking for anything specific. This is your chance to show us what you're bringing to the University of Georgia. My biggest piece of advice from my experience reading essays is to tell us something about yourself in your essays that we haven't already learned about you. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be you telling us something about yourself. It can be you're showing off creative writing skills. You're telling a story about something that happened to you. You're showing off those creative writing skills with a funny story that may have happened just a couple weeks ago. We see all kinds of essays throughout the application process. And the important thing is just to tell us something about yourself and demonstrate what kind of impact you're going to bring to the university. There's a $70 application fee. If you qualify for a fee waiver, we do accept fee waivers. You'll have to, excuse me, you'll send in an official high school transcript, and that transcript has to come officially for us to use it. And then with that, your counselor will send in a school evaluation form. I'm going to get into why that's important in just a minute, but that school evaluation form is going to tell us what your school offers as far as rigorous courses go, what that curriculum was at your school for all 4 years. We use that paired with your high school transcript as one of our tools to see how much you challenge yourself academically leading up to the application time. I'll talk about the context of that a little bit more in just a minute. The biggest change to our application process this year is our test score requirement. So SAT and ACT test scores with the University of Georgia are optional this year. And this is due to the pandemic and test scores being canceled. Now, what I would recommend doing if you have questions about test score being optional is we have a really awesome frequently asked questions page on our admissions website, and it'll tell you, what it means to be test optional. If you choose not to send in test scores, will it negatively impact you? And the answer to that question is no, it will not negatively impact you. If you choose to have test scores sent in and you think they represent you as a student, then you can elect to have those sent in. If you feel like your test scores don't represent you as a student and you haven't been able to super score those tests or take it multiple times, then you can elect to have those test scores left off, and we'll focus more on your GPA and the rigor of those courses that you took. Teacher recommendations are optional. They always have been. We recommend 1 to 2. We are a holistic review process, so the more information you can give us about yourself, the better. Teacher recommendations tend to fill in gaps in the application process that you may have left off about yourself, and they really give us a good point of view of what you look like as a student from a teacher's point of view. So those are all the things that we're going to ask for. If you've already applied, you've seen those. If you have not applied yet, this is what you are going to see. This is our admitted class profile for last year's admitted class. So these are the students that started this semester. And what you're seeing on the screen is the middle 50%. So you'll see the graphic there. All these numbers from the bottom to the top end are what you see in that graphic. So if you pulled out the middle 50 of all of our admitted students, this is what you get. Test scores are super scored. Our GPA is a weighted GPA if you've taken courses that add weight. And then that's total courses of rigor, 7 to 12 with AP, IB, and dual enrollment courses. Now I wanna pause here and just let everybody know that these are not minimums. These are not requirements that you have to have. We have students that fell outside these numbers, whether it was high or low, that got admitted and did not get admitted. We're a holistic review process, so we look at everything. And that's what that context is about. So the academic side of our application is all about context, and so is the co-curricular side of our application. And what I mean by that is when your counselor sends in that counselor letter with your school report and then your transcript, we're going to see what your school offered 9th through 12th grade, and then we're going to see each semester, each year, what you chose to take based on what was available to you, and then how much you challenged yourself with that, and then how successful you were. We do not care about what a school next to you offers, what a school in a county over offers, what a school in a different state offers. With the context, it's important to remember that it's all about your school. That said, we have no preference on AP, IB, or dual enrollment. We look at all three the same. So if your school doesn't offer an IB diploma or they don't have AP available and it's only dual enrollment, that is okay. But we want to make sure that you understand that we do expect to see that you have challenged yourself with what was offered at your school. That said, we're a holistic review process, so we are looking at everything. That includes clubs and activities you're involved in, groups at school, volunteer work, if you work, if you take care of a family member, if you've traveled, put it in there. Illustrate your impact with us. So what that means is give us a couple sentences about what each group you are involved in is. Tell us what your role is. If you're in leadership roles, tell us about what that role was. If you helped start a group, let us know. And every single student is different. And I want to make sure that I spend a little bit of time on the slide explaining the context of this. We look at each student individually. So that means that if you're involved in every group in school, that is awesome. And we're going to look at your application in that context. But one of a classmate of yours or somebody else that's applied, they may not have the access to get involved in every group because they work 40 hours a week and they help support a family member or something like that. So the worst thing you can do on this part of your application or on your application at all is compare yourself to other people. It's all about what you're bringing to the table, and we're going to use what you say in your application to make a decision about your application. And this is the part of the application that you tell us about what you're involved in. It's really important to also be detailed because we automatically consider all of our students for scholarships, our first year students, I should say, for scholarships when you apply. Those are merit-based scholarships. If you are awarded a scholarship, you will get an update to your portal and you'll be able to see what that update or what that scholarship was or is. There's nothing additional you have to send in. And for our merit-based scholarships, the test optional part of the application applies here too. So if you don't send in test scores, not going to negatively impact your part or your chance of getting a scholarship. There's also the FAFSA I like to throw in there. These are need-based scholarships. I encourage everybody to fill those out. The priority deadline is December 15th, and that's how you're going to get HOPE and Zell and any other kind of need-based aid. Get that done sooner rather than later. And then the third kind of scholarships I like to talk about are externally based scholarships. And this can really be anything else. So this can be money that you got for graduation. This can be something that you won in a competition. It can be something you applied for in a small business or a large corporation. It can be anything. You can stack these together and bring them in and help pay for school, and it can make a big difference coming out the other side. I always like to plug two websites that I think are really awesome to get things started and get the ball rolling for these scholarships. And that first one is scholarships360.org. And the second one is fastweb.com. That's FASTWEB.com. So that's scholarships360.org and fastweb.com. These are our dates and deadlines. Early action is due on October 15th, so that's coming up quickly. And our regular decision deadline is due January 1st. With early action and regular decision, again, they're evaluated the same way. There is no advantage to one over the other. It's more about your timeline. So if you're ready to apply, you can go ahead and apply early action. If you'd rather wait and get your stuff together and wait till January 1st, then you're more than welcome to do that. The Foundation Fellowship deadline is November 1st. I mentioned the Foundation Fellowship being through the honors program. It's a separate application, and it is the most prestigious scholarship that we offer at UGA. Highly encourage anybody that's interested to go check that out on the honors website. It's an amazing opportunity. November 1st is that deadline. There are 3 decisions that come out with early action. There's accepted, deferred, and denied. I'm not going to go into depth on accepted, but I am going to explain defer and deny. There's a big difference in those two, and they're often confused. A deferral simply means that we need more time. So we're going to reread your application with our regular decision students. You'll have that time in between to submit any updated documents that you think would make your application more competitive. And if you choose not to submit anything, then that is completely fine. We're going to reread your application with our regular decision students. In no way does that put you at the bottom of the pile or at any disadvantage at all. It simply means more time. A deny decision means that we don't think you're quite ready to start with us, but 33%, I believe now, of our graduating student body come in as transfer students. So if UGA is where you want to get your degree, then work with one of us, and we are more than happy to set up a plan to get you back to UGA. May 1st is our commitment deposit deadline. So like I said earlier, we are non-binding, and you're guaranteed that spot up until May 1st if you're accepted. No pressure on you to commit, although we'd love you to. May 1st is a hard commitment deadline. So up until that point, you're guaranteed your spot. After May 1st, we can no longer guarantee your spot. So don't let that happen to you. Keep May 1st in mind. If you're admitted, it's a pretty important deadline there. We also host virtual campus visit experiences. These are free to students and parents, and it'll be a shorter presentation than what I'm giving you, but similar material, and then you'll get a 30 to 40 minute tour of campus virtually from our current students. I would definitely encourage anybody that hasn't been to campus or that has and wants to learn a little bit more to sign up for our virtual campus visit experiences. They're really awesome. And that is all I have for everybody. I'm going to bring Anthony back for some question and answer for the questions that you guys have been sending in. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Michael. That was great. We got some really great information about admissions. Those of you that are watching, the Q&A button is down on the bottom, so make sure if you have questions for us, we'll be here for the next about 15 minutes. So feel free to put your questions down. If you're on a mobile device, just click on the Q&A and it should pop up. So we've got folks behind the scenes that are answering questions. So we have 2 admissions folks that will gladly type an answer to you. So Michael, let's get started. So how would a student be able to find who their admissions officer or admissions counselor is? We have a student asking who's the admissions officer for Columbus. And so how could any student just be able to find who their admissions officer is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody watching has an assigned admissions counselor. And the way to find them is to go to our admissions website, and then we have a section that says meet the staff. And then if you click on Meet the Staff under Connect, you can type in the name of your high school or your area, and it'll actually pull up your admissions counselor with one of our smiling faces and our contact information. That's what that page is there for, and that's what we're there for, is to answer those questions. So if you have any about this process or something that, that you're wondering, then send us an email.
Great, thanks, Michael. So let's talk a little bit about dual enrollment. We have a lot of students that take dual enrollment, and that's wonderful. However, we have some students that sometimes wonder, if I'm a dual enrollment student and I've taken 30 hours or more, does that mean I apply as a first-year student, or should I apply as a transfer student? Could you clear that up for us today?
Absolutely. This is a great question. So there's a couple boxes that you'd have to check to qualify as a transfer student. And one of those is being removed from high school for 1 full year before that term of enrollment. So even if you have over 30 hours as an incoming first-year student with dual enrollment credit, you would still apply as a first-year student. That 30 hours of credit will absolutely be counted as rigorous courses that you've taken. But as far as admissions goes, you are a first-year student. If you've graduated from high school and you've taken college classes outside of high school, once you've graduated and you've been removed for 1 full year, then you would be considered a transfer student.
Absolutely. Transfer means that you are transferring from one college or university to another. So that's kind of an easy way for students to understand that. Michael, what are some other ways a student could obtain a fee waiver and use it? And does UGA allow, do we accept fee waivers?
Yeah, there are a couple ways to get fee waivers. College Board offers fee waivers. ACT also offers fee waivers that we accept. If you need one and you don't know where to find one, we are happy to help you with that if you email us. But you can also go on their website or get with your high school counselor to make sure that you get a fee waiver. So a couple things you have to check and qualify for to get one of those fee waivers, but we absolutely do accept them, and your counselor can send them directly to us or to upload them to your account, and that fee waiver will waive the application fee.
Great. What does the whole student review look like? And is this something that we are using as an approach to review admissions applications? So basically the student is asking, what does a typical UGA student look like? And when they apply, are we using a holistic approach? And I know our office uses a different term, which I'll let you elaborate on. So if you could kind of talk about what is our approach to admissions through that whole student review?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this in the presentation. We're looking at academics. So we're looking at, when we say whole student, holistic, whole student are kind of interchangeable there. We're looking at your academics, so the rigor of courses that you took based on the context of your high school, your GPA coming out of high school with the rigor that you've taken. So you've challenged yourself and shown that you're prepared and coming to college. And then in a traditional year, we would pair test scores with that. If you elect to not have test scores sent in, then that will not be part of your review. If you do, then we'll use test scores as an additional piece to your application. And then we also look at everything else that you're involved in. Clubs and activities, sports, work, your contribution to your community, taking care of family members. I could probably go on for our remaining time on things that I've seen on applications for students to send in. But we consider everything: essays, teacher recommendations, counselor recommendations, and then we look at everything that you've sent in based on the context of what you had available in your high school, and then we make our decisions based on the holistic or whole student and whole application that you've sent in through UGA. Thanks,
Michael. I think you've summed that up very, very nicely, that We look at the whole student. So we don't just look at numbers. If we did, then we'd probably miss out on a lot of great students because we didn't get a chance to really hear more about the student. Could you talk a little bit now about so the student is asking, do we add weight to dual enrollment? So could you clarify how we are weighting courses or grades?
Yes. So we do not weight dual enrollment. Now, it's important to keep in mind that if your school doesn't offer any weighted courses, and weighted courses typically are AP or IB courses. Your school doesn't offer those and only offers dual enrollment, but you take a lot of dual enrollment courses based on what you had available, then not having that weighted GPA is not going to negatively impact you. We're still going to see that you have taken advantage of rigorous courses. But on the other hand, if you do have the option to take weighted courses or a variety of courses, it's not necessarily about what your GPA is as much as it is that you've challenged yourself with what was available at your school. So some students will come in with a 4.0 or a 3.9, and then another student may come in with a 4.4, but both of them have taken advantage of as much rigor as their school had to offer. So that's where that context is really, really important to keep in mind and not comparing your school to another school. But we do not weight dual enrollment courses.
Thanks, Michael. We have a question here about quotas, and this is one of our myths. What percentage of students do we admit from Georgia? What is the percentage from out of state? And is there a different admissions criteria for our Georgia residents versus an out of state? So I know that's kind of a two-part.
Yeah. So we actually don't have any quotas for in versus out of state, and the admissions process is exactly the same. The same things that we've talked about will still apply. So the context of your school, whether you're here or you're in Kansas or California, we're still going to look to see that you've taken advantage of what was available at your school. There is no advantage to in-state versus out of state. And I'd say that we have admitted, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head about how many we admit. I know it's not that far apart as far as in-state versus out of state. But if you look at our statistics, we have a lot more in-state students that will actually commit based out of that pool. So it may look like that's what's happening, but the tuition differential is really the deciding factor in where students go to school a lot of times. And in-state students simply have a lower tuition rate. So that's what draws in-state students to UGA. But as far as our admissions criteria goes, there is no difference.
Absolutely. And typically, the in-state has been in the mid 80s. So the last several years, we've been around the mid 80 percentile and about 15 to 12% out of state. But there's no quotas, there's no percentage or that we're shooting for. We're just looking for the students that fit coming into the institution. So, Michael, we have some viewers that would like to know what's our recruitment territory, so I'll go first. As I mentioned in the beginning, my name is Anthony Johnson, and I am, my recruitment territory is in Metro Atlanta. Specifically, I work with 3 school systems. I work with Fulton, DeKalb, and Atlanta Public Schools. However, any student can email me and I will gladly answer your questions. But those are the 3 school systems that I work with in Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, I work with a variety of counties. And a lot of my counties are counties that only have 1 or 2 public schools in them. But around Athens, a little bit south of Athens, and then all the way up to northeast Georgia. So counties up into the mountains, and then I work with the entire state of Tennessee. But just like Anthony said, if you email me, I'm more than happy to help with your question or help you get connected with who your counselor is. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And we're glad that you want to know what areas we work with. But yes, we do have our concentrations of recruitment territories, but we work with all students, which is great. Michael, let's talk a little bit about test optional, because that is a hot topic. It is a hot item of discussion in the admissions world. We have some students that are saying, what will happen if I choose not to submit my test scores? Will I be looked at differently? Will another area weigh heavier because I have decided not to submit my test scores?
That's a great question, and definitely a relevant question with what's going on in the world today. So if you choose not to send in test scores, it is not going to negatively impact your application. We're just going to focus on what you have submitted. So that's going to be all of your co-curricular activities that we've talked about, the rigor of courses that you've chosen to take, and that GPA coming out. And if you choose to send in test scores, then we will consider those as a part of your application. But I can tell you that test scores typically, even before this year, are a small part of our academic review. So we look more heavily focused at what you did in the classroom rather than your standardized test scores. So that's what I would recommend focusing on. And if you choose not to send in those test scores, it will not negatively impact your application.
Thanks, Michael. And we're going to wrap this up with this one last question. What one piece of advice would you like to share with our virtual audience tonight?
One piece of advice. That's a great question. Focus on yourself and what you bring to the table and really illustrate that in your application. This is not the time for you to be humble. So if you think that something that you did in one summer, say you volunteered for one summer and you're like, oh, they won't read that part, or it was just one summer. It's totally not true. These things can make a difference in your application and really illustrate what you're bringing to the University of Georgia through that application, because we do not do one-on-one interviews for admissions. And the only way for us to know what you look like as a student and what you're bringing to the table is through this application. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Focus on the impact that you made throughout your high school career and then what you're bringing to UGA, and really illustrate that to us.
Couldn't have said that better myself, Michael. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have questions for. Please note that this session is being recorded and you will be able to view it on the StriveScan registration page. And so I am going to turn it back over to Josh with further instructions that he may have for you all. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Anthony and Michael, for your presentations, and everybody on the UGA team. Thank you all at home for joining us for the presentation. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, and we'd really appreciate the feedback that you can provide. Also, as Anthony mentioned, this session was recorded, and you can find the recording as well as recordings of other universities' information sessions on the same website where you registered. And this is just one of many sessions being offered as part of this College Fair series. So be sure to sign up for some additional sessions. And that's it. Thanks again to our presenters. Thanks to all of you, and wish you all a happy good night.